So one of the biggest requests we get from you guys is a walk around of our fleet, you know, to show our cars and what we do. And so we're going to do that today. And we're going to show you everything that's going on and what each car is and what it's going to be. And we're going to show you everything warts and all. So you guys will, you know, you have a really good feel for what goes on over here. And you got to understand, we do all of this stuff at the house. We have a shop, but the shop isn't, you know, any more elaborately equipped than, you know, a typical home garage. We do a lot of work right here in the backyard. So this is probably the most logical place to start, right? So you have to excuse the mess. We just got some chickens. Uncle Kathy, let's show them the chickens. This is Maggie. You always hear Maggie barking in the background, and Maggie is like standing guard over the chickens. Where are the chickens? I guess they all went in the shed. Oh no. All right, we'll get the chickens later. But Maggie, say hi. All right. So cars, and this is Darla. Watch the poop and watch the holes. They've been digging up grubs, so the whole backyard is like a minefield. So let's start with this one, and we'll work our way all the way across to the shop. So okay, so this is the Belvedere. You guys saw the Hemi video we did the other day. Well, that aluminum motor is destined for this car, and this is supposed to be a small tire, stock suspension, grudge car with an injected nitro motor. I've been trying to start on this car for like over 2 years now, and every time I get going on it, something else comes up, another project pops up, or you know, so it's on eternal perpetual hold. Eventually, you know, we'll get it going. There's no real goal with this car other than to go as fast as we possibly can with an all-steel stock suspension B-body Mopar. So that's the Belvedere. This one over here, this is the Plan Z Dart. So the story with this one is we put this car together, I guess it was about 4 years ago now. And the idea was to go, originally it was to go $1,299 for $1,299, and we decided to do it with a slant 6. So we started with a 69 Dart, which is now like a 67 with no marker lights and a 67 grille. And it's all steel, all real glass, slant 6. It's got an A903 3-speed trans, 7 1/4 rear with a 410 gear. We weighed the car just a couple of weeks ago actually, and it's fatter than I thought it would be. She came out at 2,115 pounds. Now the motor that's in this car right now, the motor that's in this car right now is essentially stock. It's got an RV cam in it. It's got some porting on the heads, but we only put this engine together just to get fuel distribution, you know, squared away, the jetting kind of squared away, and get a feel for the characteristics of the engine. So we were going to try to run this before the end of the year this year. And when I fired it up a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, it was making a noise out of the exhaust, like a pip, 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 pip. So as it turns out, I don't know exactly what happened to it, but either one of the exhaust valves is rusted in the guide, or I don't know. But this motor is going to come apart, and we're building a super lightweight motor for it. Like I said, this one here is a stock early, you know, engine, full weight, probably weighs about 410 pounds. And the one that we're building is based on the later lightweight 81 through 87 casting that we've already took like, we're going to do a whole story on that engine. There's going to be a whole series, a whole build-up on that motor. So hopefully we get it together in the spring, and hopefully we get this car under the, I'd like to hit the starting line with the car weight of about 2,050 pounds, and then you throw my 190 pounds in there and, you know, do the math. But I would like to go 12.0 1190 with this car, you know, normally aspirated, just straight up slant motor, which is a lot harder than it seems. So now we got to go in the garage. So let's go in the garage. So you guys have seen this car in the background of tons of videos. It's a 1968 Roadrunner. We picked this thing up, oh, how long ago was it? About 12 years ago now? 11? yeah, some 10, 11 years ago. It came from Alabama. It was a stripped, destroyed car. I mean, this thing was a mess. And the goal with this car was to build something that was reminiscent of like the old, stoplight to stoplight New York City street rat days. So that's what it is. Basically, everything on this car is like mid-1970s vintage. Every nut, every bolt, like there's nothing that's, of the modern era. The motor is it's a 400. Okay, the bottom end of the motor is basically a stock 400. It's got a roller cam in it, 906 heads, factory intake manifold, but two 6 1/4 AFBs. The mechanicals of this combination. I had this in my friend Dr. Nightmare's Daytona, and that car is tube chassis car, 3,100 pounds, and it ran 1077 in his car. It won't run anywhere near that in this car, but the basic combination is all there. But again, complete 1970s, street rat, New York City street rat. It's got 6-cylinder torsion bars, 3,500 RPM converter, 727, 410, 8 3/4 rear, and it's just, it's a nostalgic trip. The car never leaves the garage. So why doesn't this car leave the garage? Because it really doesn't have a place. There's no stoplight to stoplight kind of action here, like we used to do back in the old days. So it's like the car goes out, but it's like kind of pointless. So it just sits here, and it's the only car that we have that has a permanent indoor, home. But we'll get this car out and do some stuff with it, hopefully this coming year. And this is an engine that I'd like to build for it. It's a 383, and we'll talk about the details of this at some point in the future. This is our other Roadrunner. This is a 73. I picked this thing off Craigslist. I paid like $2,500 for it about 10 years ago. It's a mess. It was a mess. It's still far from, perfect. But it's 340, 188 heads, J heads. It's got a 600 Edelbrock on it right now, which is way too small a carburetor for it. It's a 4-speed. It's got an 833 overdrive box in it right now, and it's got a 321 8 1/4 rear. So this is the only car that I own that has electronic ignition, sway bars, and disc brakes. It drives fantastic. It's like a perfect road trip type of car, and it handles like crazy. So it handles so good. We tried autocross, which is something that like is totally out of my out of my wheelhouse. So we took it to an autocross meet, and we made like 3 runs with this car, and then they didn't want me to ever come back again. I took out their timing equipment. You take somebody who's like like my whole mentality is just like stab and steer, right? So that's what I do. So to train yourself to be like have a little finesse and all that, it takes a little. So they asked us not to come back, but we had fun. So this car is a complete driving car. I did the body work on this probably about 9 years ago now. We need to redo it and give it some paint. Here, come around the driver's side. See, we got some rust through over here. Paint is peeling off. I don't do very good body and paint. So that's basically it. So she's not, but I love her. This one over here. This one, Uncle Cat and I put together, I guess, 2 years ago now. So actually, she built this engine. It's a motorhome short block. It's got ported 906s, a ported stock intake manifold, 850 Edelbrock. This is the car. If you go to the video we did called "How to Do a Bitch and Burnout," This is the car that we used, and you can see how it runs and sounds and all of that in that video. It's a heavy car. She's about 4,100 pounds. And the whole thing with this car was just like, you know the whole ratty muscle thing? Well, here it is. This is the definition of ratty muscle. It's got it also, okay, so it's got a Fireball cam. It's stuck in there 4 degrees advanced. It's a 3,500 RPM converter, 727. It's got a 323 8 3/4 in it. Car runs really, really good. Unfortunately, it hasn't left this spot probably in about 6 months or so now. Because, you know, YouTube takes a lot of time. You would think, well, you know, you got all the time in the world to work on your cars. No, making these videos sucks up all the time. But anyway, that's this car right here. And you'll be seeing more of this in the future. But we don't really plan on doing very much with it in terms of, like, you know, a project. Other than it has a crunched rear quarter panel, so we'll probably do something on that. And I'd like to road trip this car. It's a really good road trip type of car. So so that's this one. So let's go over here. This is the one we call Mrs. Landy. 1964 Dart. We bought this in Memphis about 8 or 9 years ago now, from the original family. A guy named Curtis, right? Really cool guy. So the story we got from him was that this car has been in continuous use since new, since it was, you know, so they bought it and it got passed from family member to family member, and they used it as transportation, and then Curtis was using it as transportation, and then he just decided to sell it. So we bought it, and then we used it for transportation. This was our daily driver for, I don't know, I guess about 3 or 4 years. Only, really, the only car that we drove. It's a 170 slant, push button 904, 270 gear, 7 1/4. And as far as we could tell, she's a 1,000,000-mile car. Nothing's ever been apart. If you get underneath this car and you look at the transmission, it looks like a plastic model kit. There's so much dirt and like, you know, gack built up that all of the fine details are kind of like embedded. You know what I mean? So it looks like it's made out of molded plastic. But she runs like a top every day. You know, well, not every day anymore. She probably gets used every 2 or 3 days to just run around the neighborhood. But we really have no plans for this car either, except drive it, freshen it, and as we do stuff with it, you know, we'll let you know. I'm halfway thinking about building a fresh Line 6 for it, but this 170 just goes and goes and goes. Doesn't burn a drop of oil, runs like a top. You know, it's like, leave it alone. This Swinger, so we had a little side swipe incident with it, which was my fault. Look, it's our neighbor coming out to have a smoke. Say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
There you go. So this one here started out as a pile of parts. I was in the Mopar parts business for a while, so for about 10 years. So I would get stuff that was like too nice to scrap but not nice enough to sell, and I would make piles of it. So I pick up a solid unibody, and that's what it was. It was just quarter panels, roof, and floor and frame rails. And we took all of this stuff that wasn't nice enough to sell and put it together in the backyard. And this has been our daily driver for, I guess, going on 4 or 5, just about 5 years now. It's a stock 318 2-barrel. It's got a dual exhaust, but other than that, the car, no, mechanically, it's dead stock. 904 7 1/4 rear with a shore grip. It's got a 290 shore grip 7 1/4. You don't come across those very often. So, and there's no plan for this car except just fix the damage, reshoot it, and put her back into traffic. But let's get in this now and go to the shop and check out the other stuff. So you guys all know a bottle rocket. If you don't, we have a whole playlist, the build up from ground zero on up. So we finished the project, the basic part of the project, got it up and running a couple of weeks ago, and I'm very happy with the results. But we have 3 issues that we need to overcome. The first is that I got to pull the tranny back out. It doesn't want to shift into second gear. If you pull aggressively on it, she just fights back or she won't go. So I got to pull the tranny and see what's going on with that. The steering box is like it's like anything over like 40, 50 miles an hour, it's undrivable. The car's just all over the road. And Lamb Chop is supposed to be driving this thing, and I don't want to, watch him wipe out because I cheaped on a steering box. Lamb Chop's driving it because, honestly, I get nothing out of driving these cars. I would much rather watch them go down the track, and do the tuning and the tweaking. So I try to pass off driving on other people any chance that I get. I'm good at it, I just don't really get anything out of it. So that's the situation with this. Oh, and the third problem with this is that we wiped out yet another cam. All right, so you guys are going to, all of the peanut gallery now, oh, he doesn't know how to break in an engine. Oh, he doesn't know. Listen, I'll tell you what, right? Save it. I've built hundreds of engines. I've installed countless cams. Over 42 years of doing this stuff, up till this year, I never lost one. The first one, we have 3 so far this year. The first one was on at 273, and we'll show you that car in a minute. It was on at 273, and it was a white box Chinese cam that the customer, when I did that car, I didn't own it. It belonged to somebody else. So the customer brought me a white box Chinese cam to throw in there. I said, all right, fine, threw it in. And as it turned out, that cam had a bad heat treat. We did an autopsy video. You can go back and you can watch that. So we put that one back together again. She runs like a top. This one, we've burned through 2 cams in it. The first was a collapsed lifter on the initial break-in. The first time we started the car, there was a lifter that never pumped up. You never soaked them in oil. They've been soaked, okay? Again, peanut gallery, save the comments. Never lifted, the lifter never pumped up, it took out that lobe. Then we put this one together, used whiplash cam, and I'll tell you exactly where we made our mistake with this. We should have bought lifters from them. They have a no flat cam guarantee. Well, you know what? We didn't do it. I cheaped out. I get a good deal on sealed power parts, okay? So it was a set of sealed power lifters that went bad the first time around, and it's a set of sealed power lifters that went bad this time around. We discovered it. I discovered this a couple of nights after we shot the video on this. I was driving the car around trying to put some miles on it, and the lifter noise kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. So I popped the valve cover off, and we've got one that's collapsed, just like the ones that were in the first cam that went bad, and we have one that's not collapsed, but it has to be flat on the bottom, or the lobe has got to be gone, because it's just ticking away there. So I think we're going to end up going full roller on this thing, because I'm done with playing hydraulic cam roulette. So, but that's the situation with this. You probably won't see anything else with this car until the spring comes. When that happens, we go out and we spray it. The goal with this car is to get it to run bottom 12s on engine, and I want to see a 1090 time slip out of it, spraying. Our friends at Nitrous Express supplied us with all of the stuff we need to either go run this thing into the 10s or throw the crankshaft on the ground, or do both. Either way, it's going to be fun. Stay tuned. So, out here. So this is our carry van. You remember during the summer we were getting this thing ready to do a road trip. And it made it. 2,000 mile round trip. Ran like a top. So you can see we set this thing up. When we need it, it's a camper, and when we need it as a box truck, it's a box truck. So we've got everything we need in here. We've got the table, chairs, barbecue, coolers, air mattresses, tent, everything you need to do stuff out on the road is all packed in here. And truck runs like a top. I gave it a quickie coat of yellow Rust-Oleum. But it's just a quickie coat. It all needs to be sanded and do a nice job on it. I just wanted to get it out of that. Somebody painted this thing with like gallons of black implement paint. They just splashed it all over the thing. So I sanded it, threw a base coat of the yellow on here, and early next year we'll probably give it a nice, finish coat. And then we've got our Ram Charger that we just pulled around yesterday. So we're going to get ready to pull this motor out. The motor's locked up. I wrestled. I didn't know what to do with this truck as far as the project goes. It's going to end up as a tow vehicle for sure. But I didn't really know which way to go with it, what to do with it. So it's going to be a gas mileage build. I thought about it and I was like, you know what? with all these different performance and so on and so forth things that we're doing, let's do something that's a little more practical, a little more, you know, applicable to somebody who's just putting together a driver. So that's what we're going to do with this. We're going to take this motor out, see what's wrong with it, fix it, stick it back in, just get the car running, and then we're going to come up with a combination, you know, strictly for gas mileage. And I have an idea of what I want to do with it, but we'll talk about that like as a full-blown project as we go further along. Right now, the goal is just to get this thing up and running, get the electric squared away, make sure everything works. Give it a clean up, you know. So that's, and we got to throw a windshield in here. But other than that, you know, it's a good solid truck, and that's what's going to happen with that. So we got one more section of the Enterprise to show you guys. So let's go to the back. So this is the back lot at the shop, and this is where we store stuff, and you know, just in between, you know what I mean, and projects to be done. This is our trailer. This was free, so we just, you know, we're doing a few things to it. I built this ramp for it. What do you say about it? It's a trailer. It's ratty. It's free. Come back here. So this is our 1980 Dodge Wrecker. You've seen this thing in the background of a bunch of videos too. It's actually a factory Dodge Retriever, which was a wrecker package that they had in the late 70s, the early 80s. And we rescued this thing from a scrapper. Not that it was going to get scrapped, but the guy was using it to make scrap runs, you know, and to rip shit apart. So it runs really good. We did a bunch of road trips with this thing, you know, picking up cars and whatnot. It's ratty. It needs a lot of love. And I don't spend any time on it because the way I use this thing is like really not much different than how the wrecker used it. Well, not the wrecker, the scrapper. This is like my Swiss Army knife. This is my engine hoist. I'm always using this thing to pull cars, drag things. It never gets any happy time, you know. But hopefully that'll change a little bit in the future. I would like to do the paint and, you know, freshen up everything, but it's down the road. You know, the truck functions the way it does, and you know, it's a rat. So then there's this thing. It's a 1967 Dart GT. The story behind this car is that this is my second time around owning it. I bought it, I guess it was about 8 years ago now. It was a slant six, air conditioning, power steering, power brakes. It had like all of the bells and whistles, you know. So it was just a nice driver car, and that's how I had it envisioned. It was like, you know, this is like the perfect daily driver. So I got it running, got the AC working, got all of that, and then I ended up trading it for that 67 Charger that's in the driveway. The guy I traded it to, he sells it to a guy, and this guy doesn't want to have anything to do with slant sixes or air conditioning or luxuries or anything like that. So then he brings me the car, and he has me convert it to a V8, 273, 904. It still has a 7 1/4 in it. So I do all of that, and then he brings it back to me again last year, and he says, I want you to do a cam, intake, headers, carburetor, the whole 10 yards. So I says, all right, fine. So I do all of this, and I got the car running, runs like a top, right? Actually, it's pretty good looking too on this here. Oh yeah, you guys saw this on that the vacuum. So look at all the dust. We had like a drought back here, so everything in our lives is covered with dust. You guys saw this on that vacuum secondary carburetor video that we did. So it runs like a horse. At any rate, I called the guy up and I tell him, hey, car's done. Come and pick it up. He says, I don't want that car anymore. I said, you kidding me? I said, what do you want? He says, I want that 62 Savoy that you got. I had a 62 Savoy. What video did we do with that one? That was the Barn Fun. First Start Barn, right. So he says, I want to trade you for that 62 that you have. Fine, no problem. So he never even drove this car. It runs like a horse. It's a great road trip car, and we're going to leave this thing mechanically. We're going to leave it alone and just work on the cosmetics, do the interior, do the body. You know, just a nice driver. And then this one over here, so we did that video about a month ago on how those cars are still out there. So this is a 74 Dustin that we picked up. It's a California car. It's complete, right, one into the other. 225/6, 3-speed on the floor, 7 1/4 rear, and the goal with this car, and this is like a series that we're going to start on probably in the spring, is just building a nice classic car daily driver. Just going through it end to end and coming up with a package that anybody can drive any day, take it to work, take it to school, you know, just a happy daily driver. So that's what we're going to do with this car, and you know, that's what we're going to do with this car. Then we've got this. And again, this was like up in the air, what are we going to do with this car, right? Because it's only half a car. Well, this is going to be a dirt track car. My buddy John is coming down, I believe this weekend, to haul this thing up to his place in Portland, Tennessee. And this is going to be a dirt track car. This is going to be Uncle Tony's Garage dirt tracker. And this is cool because, see, I have no experience with roundy round cars or anything like that. This guy's been doing it for years and years. So we're going to do the whole build up on this thing. Building the chassis for it, the motor, the trains, the rear, all of that stuff. And see how it goes, going to tear up stuff on dirt. But at any rate, that's pretty much it. That's the fleet as it exists right now. We definitely don't plan on anything else. All of this stuff, you gotta understand, this is all done. There's nobody, you know, there's no help here. There's no magic fairies or anything like that to come and you know, fix this or put that together. This is all done by me and Uncle Kathy and Lamb Chop, of course, you know, with Bottle Rocket. But you know, think of it all what you will, but this is our fleet, warts and all, and you'll be seeing a lot more of all of this in the future. So that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.